Wealthy single father sees homeless alien girl teaching his son what he did next. Jonathan Mercer adjusted his crimson tie as he strode through Elysium Central Park, his polished shoes crunching against the azure gravel pathway. The diplomatic summit had dragged on for hours, filled with posturing alien dignitaries and thinly veiled threats disguised as trade proposals. All he wanted now was to return to his penthouse, pour a glass of Terran whiskey, and forget about the responsibilities weighing on his shoulders. The twin stars of the Elysium system cast long shadows through the exotic foliage as afternoon faded toward evening. Jonathan loosened his tie slightly, allowing himself this small break from the perfect composure expected of Earth's senior diplomatic envoy. A familiar laugh caught his attention, his son's laugh. Jonathan paused, peering through a gap in the luminescent hedge plants. There, seated on a park bench beneath a canopy of silver-leaf trees, was Michael, his 12-year-old son, hunched over what appeared to be his quantum physics homework. But Michael wasn't alone. Beside him sat a young alien girl, approximately the same age as his son. Her skin was a soft, light blue, almost translucent in the fading daylight, with delicate patterns that seemed to pulse with her movements. Long, silvery white hair cascaded over her shoulders, contrasting sharply with her worn orange jumpsuit, standard issue for the underprivileged sectors of Elysium. "No, see, you've got the equation backward," the girl was saying, her voice melodic yet firm. "The gravitational constant comes first, then you multiply by the mass values." Michael's brow furrowed in concentration, but Professor Hendricks said, "Your professor teaches the simplified human version," she replied with gentle patience. "But if you want to understand how it actually works in a triphasic system like Elysium's, you need to account for the dimensional drift." Jonathan watched, transfixed, as this clearly impoverished alien child explained advanced physics concepts to his son with remarkable clarity. Michael nodded eagerly, scratching out his previous work and starting again. When Jonathan stepped forward, both children startled. The alien girl immediately tensed, her posture shifting to one of defensive wariness. Michael's expression cycled rapidly from surprise to guilt to defiance. "Dad, I can explain," Michael stammered, clutching his textbook. Jonathan raised his hands in a calming gesture. "It's all right, son." The tension in the alien girl's shoulders remained, her large, iridescent eyes assessing him carefully. Jonathan recognized that look, the universal wariness of the disadvantage when confronted by the privilege. "I'm Jonathan Mercer," he said, directing a warm smile toward the girl. "And you are?" "Siri," she answered cautiously. "Siri Nathal." "Siri has been helping me with my homework, Dad," Michael interjected quickly. "She understands physics better than anyone at my academy." Jonathan nodded, genuinely impressed. "I can see that. Where did you two meet?" The children exchanged glances, a silent conversation passing between them. "I got lost," Michael finally admitted. "Last month, when I was supposed to be at Tanner's house. I took the wrong transit line and ended up in the Eastern District." Jonathan felt a chill run through him. The Eastern District was notorious, a poverty-stricken area where few humans ventured. "I helped him find his way back," Siri added, her voice gaining confidence. "The Eastern District isn't dangerous if you know how to navigate it. It's just misunderstood." "Since then, we've been meeting here," Michael continued. "Siri's been helping me with my studies, and I've been teaching her about Earth." Jonathan observed the easy camaraderie between them, so rare in a world where humans and aliens often maintain careful distance despite diplomatic pleasantries. "Well, it's getting late," Jonathan said, checking his chronometer. "Michael, we should head home for dinner." Disappointment flashed across both young faces. "Can Siri come too?" Michael asked hopefully. Jonathan hesitated, studying the alien girl more carefully. Despite her worn clothing, there was unmistakable intelligence and dignity in her bearing. Something about her reminded him of his late wife. Perhaps it was the determined set of her jaw or the kindness in her eyes. "Where do you live, Siri?" he asked gently. "Eastern District, Section 8, she replied, her chin lifting slightly, "with my mother and younger siblings." Section 8, the poorest area of an already impoverished district. Jonathan made a decision. "You're welcome to join us for dinner," he said, "if your mother wouldn't mind." The look of surprised delight on both children's faces was worth any potential diplomatic complications. Really? Siri asked, disbelief coloring her voice. Really, Jonathan confirmed. Any friend of Michael's is welcome in our home. As they gathered their belongings, Jonathan noticed how carefully Siri handled her tattered backpack, treating it with the reverence usually reserved for precious artifacts. It struck him then how much he had taken for granted since his appointment to Elysium, and how much a simple dinner invitation might mean to this child. What had begun as a routine walk home had suddenly become something much more significant. Jonathan didn't yet understand the full implications of this chance encounter, but watching his son laugh with his unusual new friend, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years: hope. The Mercer penthouse occupied the entire top floor of the Terran Embassy's residential tower. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Elysium's capital city, with its soaring spires and flowing architecture that seemed to defy gravity. As the elevator ascended, Jonathan watched Siri's reflection in the polished doors. Her eyes were wide, taking in every detail of human luxury with quiet amazement. "Your dwelling is very high," she observed, her voice carefully neutral, despite the slight tremor in her hands. Michael grinned. "Dad says it's for security, but I think he just likes the view." "Both can be true," Jonathan replied with a smile. "Though I admit, watching the sunrise over the crystalline mountains never gets old." The elevator doors slid open silently, revealing the penthouse's spacious entryway. Siri hesitated at the threshold, her gaze sweeping across the open-concept living area with its Earth-imported furniture and art pieces. "Please come in," Jonathan encouraged, gesturing toward the interior. "Michael, why don't you show Siri around while I prepare dinner?" As the children disappeared down the hallway, Jonathan headed to the kitchen, activating the cooking interface with a practiced gesture. He selected a menu that included both Terran and Elysian dishes, hoping to make their guests feel welcome. While the automated systems prepared the meal, Jonathan made a discreet call to his security chief. "Run a background check on a family in Eastern District, Section 8. Surname Nathal. I need it within the hour." By the time the children returned, the dining table was set with an array of steaming dishes. Siri's eyes widened at the spread. "This is more food than my family sees in a week," she said softly, then immediately looked embarrassed at her admission. Jonathan pretended not to notice her discomfort. "Please sit. I hope you'll find something you enjoy." Throughout dinner, Jonathan observed the easy rapport between Michael and Siri. His son, normally reserved around strangers, was animated and talkative. Siri, despite her initial shyness, displayed a quick wit and surprising knowledge of not just Elysian culture, but human history as well. "Where did you learn so much about Earth?" Jonathan asked as he served dessert, a fusion of Terran chocolate and native Elysian berries. Siri carefully set down her fork. "The Eastern District Library. It's small, but they have some human texts. And," she hesitated, "sometimes I listen to educational broadcasts when I can find a working terminal." "Siri knows everything," Michael declared proudly. "She's way smarter than anyone at my academy." "Not everything," Siri corrected gently. "Just, I like learning." Jonathan's comm unit discreetly vibrated against his wrist. The background check had arrived. He excused himself briefly, stepping into his office to review the information. What he read made his stomach tighten. The Nathal family consisted of Siri, her mother Cephia, currently suffering from Cascade Syndrome, a degenerative condition common among lower-class Elysians exposed to industrial toxins, and 3 younger siblings. They were 2 months behind on their housing payments. Eviction proceedings had already begun. When Jonathan returned to the dining room, he found Siri helping Michael clear the table, insisting on contributing despite being a guest. "Siri," Jonathan said carefully, "it's getting late. I should arrange transportation to take you home." The girl's shoulders tensed slightly. "Thank you, but I can find my way. The night transit still runs for another hour." "I insist," Jonathan replied. "It would be irresponsible of me to let you travel alone at this hour." As they rode in Jonathan's private shuttle, the gleaming towers of the diplomatic district gave way to progressively shabbier buildings. The Eastern District was a stark contrast. Structures in disrepair, dim lighting, and streets crowded with various alien species, most wearing expressions of weariness. When they reached Section 8, Jonathan understood why Siri had been reluctant to accept a ride. The housing block was barely standing, with makeshift repairs visible even in the dim evening light. "Thank you for dinner, Mr. Mercer," Siri said formally as the shuttle hovered near her building's entrance. "And for bringing me home." "Siri," Jonathan said before she could exit, "is your mother home? I'd like to meet her if possible." Alarm flashed across Siri's face. "She's not well. She needs rest." "I understand," Jonathan nodded. "Perhaps another time." As Siri disappeared into the dilapidated building, Michael turned to his father. "Dad, why do they live like this?" "It's not fair." Jonathan sighed, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. "No, it's not fair. But perhaps we can do something about it." The next morning, Jonathan made 3 calls. The first was to his financial advisor, instructing him to anonymously cover the Nathal family's housing debt. The second was to his contact at the Elysian Medical Council, arranging for a specialist in Cascade Syndrome to coincidentally visit the Eastern District Clinic. The third call was to Ambassador Trelovic, his most vocal critic among the Elysian diplomatic corps. "Ambassador," Jonathan said pleasantly when the stern-faced alien appeared on the screen, "I'd like to discuss a potential educational initiative for the Eastern District. Perhaps over lunch?" Ambassador Trelovic's facial ridges darkened to a deep purple, a clear sign of agitation among his species. He set down his eating utensil with deliberate precision. "Let me understand this correctly, Mercer. You want to establish an educational exchange program between the Diplomatic Academy and Eastern District schools?" His third eye narrowed skeptically. "What possible benefit could this bring to either side?" Jonathan maintained his diplomatic smile, unfazed by the ambassador's obvious disdain. They sat in one of Elysium's most exclusive restaurants, surrounded by the planet's elite. Several tables away, a group of human trade representatives glanced repeatedly in their direction, clearly surprised to see Earth's senior envoy dining with his most vocal critic. "Talent exists everywhere, Ambassador. The Eastern District is full of brilliant minds lacking only opportunity." Jonathan took a measured sip of his drink. Earth learned this lesson centuries ago. Limiting education to the privileged is wasteful. Brilliance doesn't recognize social boundaries. Trelovic's ridges pulsed. "How very human of you. Always believing you can reshape societies to match your idealistic notions?" "Perhaps," Jonathan conceded, "but consider the practical benefits. Eastern District children with exceptional abilities could eventually serve Elysium in diplomatic or scientific capacities. The program could even identify potential mediators who understand both worlds." "And what does Earth gain from this philanthropy?" Trelovic demanded. Jonathan leaned forward slightly. "Goodwill. Something in short supply between our worlds lately." The conversation continued in this vein throughout lunch, with Jonathan carefully navigating the ambassador's objections. By the meal's end, Trelovic hadn't agreed to support the initiative, but he hadn't dismissed it outright either, a diplomatic victory by any measure. As Jonathan left the restaurant, his comm unit buzzed with an urgent message from the Terran embassy. Director Harlow, his immediate superior, requested an immediate meeting. "Have you lost your mind, Mercer?" Director Harlow paced behind his desk, his weathered face flushed with anger. "Lunch with Trelovic? Housing payments to an alien family? Medical specialists dispatched to the slums? What the hell are you playing at?" Jonathan stood at ease, hands clasped behind his back. "Sir, I'm pursuing initiatives that will improve Earth-Elysium relations at the grassroots level." "Bullshit." Harlow slammed a hand on his desk. "You're compromising our position. The Galactic Council negotiations are 3 months away, and you're showing weakness. The Elysians respect strength, not charity." "With respect, sir, that's an outdated assessment of Elysian culture." Harlow's eyes narrowed. "This is about that alien family, isn't it? The girl your son has befriended." Jonathan maintained his composure. "My personal connections have provided insights into Elysian society that our formal briefings lack. The disparity between districts is creating instability that could threaten our position here." "Save the diplomatic double talk," Harlow snapped. "You're emotionally compromised. I'm considering reassigning you." "That would be a mistake," Jonathan replied evenly. "I've established relationships with key Elysian officials that took years to cultivate. Replacing me now, before the council negotiations, would signal instability in Earth's diplomatic corps." A tense silence stretched between them. Finally, Harlow sighed. You have 2 weeks to show tangible benefits from these initiatives. If you can't, I'll have you on a transport back to Earth. He pointed a finger at Jonathan. And keep your personal entanglements discreet. The last thing we need is a scandal. That evening, Jonathan received an unexpected visitor. The penthouse security system announced Sophia Nathal's arrival with a soft chime. Jonathan found himself momentarily speechless when he opened the door. Despite her obvious illness, the telltale blue-tinged veins of Cascade syndrome visible along her neck, Sophia possessed a striking elegance. Her silver-white hair was pulled back in an intricate braid, and her eyes, the same iridescent hue as her daughter's, held both intelligence and wariness. "Mr. Mercer," she said, her voice melodic despite its weakness, "I believe we have matters to discuss." Jonathan invited her in, offering refreshments which she politely declined. "I know what you've done," Sophia stated once they were seated in the living area. "The housing debt, the medical specialist who happened to visit our district clinic yesterday." "I'm not sure what—" She raised a hand, stopping his denial. "Please, I worked in diplomatic services before my illness. I recognize a coordinated intervention when I see one." Jonathan nodded, respecting her directness. "Your daughter has been a positive influence on my son. I wanted to help." "Humans," Sophia said with a small smile, "always so forthright with your motivations. It's refreshing, if sometimes perplexing." She leaned forward slightly. "But charity creates obligation, Mr. Mercer. In our culture, such debts can bind families for generations." "That wasn't my intention," Jonathan assured her. "Perhaps not. But intentions rarely matter as much as consequences." She studied him for a moment. "My daughter tells me you're proposing an educational initiative for Eastern District children." "Yes, a scholarship program, among other things." "And you expect resistance from both your people and mine?" Jonathan smiled ruefully. "It's already begun." Sophia nodded. "Then perhaps we can help each other. I may be ill, Mr. Mercer, but I still have connections in certain circles, and I understand Elysian politics in ways you cannot." "What are you proposing?" "An alliance," she replied. "You provide opportunities for Eastern District children, beginning with Siri. In return, I help navigate the political obstacles you'll face." Jonathan considered her offer. "And your other children?" "They would remain with family while I receive treatment," she said. "I won't use them as bargaining chips." Something in her dignity, her refusal to leverage her own children despite their circumstances, resonated deeply with Jonathan. He extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement. "Partners, then." After a moment's hesitation, Sophia placed her blue-tinged hand in his. The contact sent an unexpected warmth through Jonathan's arm, a sensation he hadn't experienced since his wife's passing. "Partners," she agreed, her eyes meeting his with quiet intensity. "And that concludes today's lecture on interspecies diplomatic protocols," Professor Karn announced, his tentacles rippling with academic satisfaction. "Remember, your comparative analysis papers are due next week." The lecture hall at Elysium's Diplomatic Academy emptied quickly as students rushed to their next classes. Michael Mercer, now 17 and having outgrown his childhood frailty, gathered his materials unhurriedly. His once shy demeanor had evolved into quiet confidence, his chestnut hair still neatly trimmed, but now styled with deliberate casualness. "Waiting for someone?" a melodic voice asked from behind him. Michael turned, his heart performing its now familiar skip at the sight of Siri. 5 years had transformed her from a scrappy Eastern District kid into one of the Academy's most striking students. Her light blue skin had deepened to a rich azure, complementing her silver-white hair that now reached her lower back. The standard Academy uniform, a tailored navy jumpsuit with silver piping, accentuated her graceful figure in ways that made Michael increasingly aware of their changing relationship. "Just my study partner," he replied with a grin. "Have you seen her? Blue skin, brilliant mind, terrible taste in music?" Siri rolled her iridescent eyes. "Earth music is mathematically inferior. That's not opinion, that's science." Says the girl who danced for 3 hours straight at the embassy's Earth Day celebration. "Research purposes only," she insisted, falling into step beside him as they exited the lecture hall. Their easy banter masked deeper currents. Over the past year, Michael had become acutely conscious of how his feelings for Siri had evolved beyond friendship. Every accidental touch, every shared laugh, carried new significance. What he didn't know was whether she felt the same transformation. As they walked across the Academy's manicured grounds, several Elysian students deliberately moved aside, creating unnecessary distance. Despite 5 years of Jonathan and Sophia's educational initiative, which now brought dozens of Eastern District students to the Academy, integration remained challenging. "Vexnor is watching again," Siri murmured, not turning her head. Michael resisted the urge to look. Vexnor Trelovic, son of the ambassador, had made it his personal mission to make Siri's Academy experience miserable. As the self-appointed leader of the purist student faction, he viewed Eastern District scholarship students, especially those friendly with humans, as contaminating influences. "Ignore him," Michael advised. "He's just jealous because you outscored him in galactic law again." "It's not that simple and you know it," Siri replied, her voice tightening. "His father chairs the Academy board now. One word from him, and my scholarship could disappear." Michael's jaw clenched. "He wouldn't dare. Not with my father's position." "Your father won't always be here to protect us, Michael. The Earth rotation schedule means he'll be reassigned eventually." The reminder of his father's potential departure hung between them as they reached the transit platform. After Sophia's successful treatment for Cascade Syndrome, the Nathal family had moved to a comfortable apartment in the Mixed District, a direct result of Sophia's new position as cultural liaison for the Eastern District Initiative. The program, despite initial resistance, had become one of the most successful human-Elysian cooperative ventures in decades. "Coming over tonight?" Michael asked as their transport arrived. "Dad's making actual Earth food, not the synthesized stuff." Siri's expression brightened. "Your father's cooking?" "Wouldn't miss it." Dinner at the Mercer penthouse had become a bi-weekly tradition. Jonathan, now sporting distinguished touches of gray at his temples, had developed an unexpected talent for cooking during his years on Elysium. Sophia, fully recovered from her illness and radiating quiet elegance, often assisted him, their movements in the kitchen reflecting years of comfortable companionship. Tonight, however, an undercurrent of tension ran beneath the usual warmth. Michael noticed his father checking his comm unit repeatedly, while Sophia seemed unusually contemplative. "Is everything all right?" Michael finally asked as they cleared the dinner plates. Jonathan and Sophia exchanged glances. "We received news today," Jonathan began carefully. "The Galactic Council has approved my proposal for a permanent human-Elysian cultural exchange center." "That's fantastic," Siri exclaimed. "There's more," Sophia added. "They've appointed your father as the first human director." Michael felt a surge of pride, quickly followed by confusion. "But that means—" "I won't be returning to Earth next month as scheduled," Jonathan confirmed. "The appointment is for a minimum of 3 years." Relief flooded through Michael. He'd been dreading his father's scheduled rotation back to Earth, which would have meant leaving Elysium, leaving Siri, to complete his education on his home planet. "There's something else," Jonathan continued, his expression growing serious. "Ambassador Trelovic has filed a formal complaint about the program. He's claiming preferential treatment for Eastern District students, particularly—" He hesitated. "Me," Siri finished quietly. "Because of my mother's position and our connection to your family." Sophia reached across the table to touch her daughter's hand. "It's political maneuvering, nothing more. The program's success threatens the traditional power structures." "But it could become dangerous," Jonathan warned. "Trelovic's faction is growing more vocal. I want both of you to be careful." After dinner, Michael and Siri escaped to the penthouse's rooftop garden, their private retreat since childhood. The artificial gravity was slightly reduced here, making the exotic plants sway gently in the evening breeze. Below them, Elysium's capital glittered with lights that rivaled the stars above. "Are you worried?" Michael asked as they settled onto their favorite bench. Siri was quiet for a moment. "Not about Trelovic. Not really. I'm more concerned about—" She hesitated. "About what?" She turned to face him, her iridescent eyes reflecting the city lights. "About us, Michael. What happens after graduation? You could return to Earth, attend any university you wanted. I'm bound to Elysium." "I'm not going anywhere," he said firmly, reaching for her hand. The contact sent a familiar warmth through him, but tonight it intensified, spreading up his arm and throughout his body. Siri's eyes widened slightly, suggesting she felt it too. "Michael," she whispered, her voice carrying a new note he'd never heard before. "There's something you should know about Elysian physiology. When we form deep connections, there are physical manifestations." "Like what?" he asked, suddenly very aware of how close they were sitting. "Like this," she murmured, guiding his hand to her wrist, where a subtle, rhythmic glow pulsed beneath her skin. "It's called the resonance. It happens when—" She blushed, her cheeks darkening to deep indigo. "When what?" Michael prompted, his heart racing. "When an Elysian finds their bonded mate," she finished, her eyes meeting his with vulnerable honesty. The implication hung between them for one breathless moment before Michael leaned forward, closing the distance between their lips. The Academy's central courtyard buzzed with activity as students gathered for the annual Cultural Exchange Festival. Colorful displays representing Earth and various Elysian regions filled the space, with the Eastern District exhibit drawing particular attention this year. Michael adjusted the Earth display's holographic projection of the Grand Canyon, while stealing glances at Siri, who was arranging traditional Eastern District musical instruments nearby. 3 days had passed since their moment in the rooftop garden, 3 days of stolen glances, lingering touches, and an unspoken understanding that everything had changed between them. The resonance glow beneath Siri's skin had intensified, now visible even through her academy uniform whenever they were near each other. "Quite the spectacle this year," a cold voice interrupted Michael's thoughts. Vexnor Trelovic stood beside the Earth display, his tall, angular frame radiating disdain. Unlike most Elysians, his skin was pale lavender, marking his bloodline as one of the planet's oldest and most pure families. "Ambassador's son or not, this is my display," Michael replied evenly. "Unless you're here to learn about Earth culture, I suggest you move along." Vexnor's third eye narrowed. "Oh, I'm learning plenty about humans, particularly their appetites." His gaze shifted deliberately towards Siri. "Tell me, Mercer, is it true what they say? That humans will mate with any species?" Michael's hands clenched, but he maintained his composure. "I don't discuss my personal life with bigots." "Personal? So it's true then?" Vexnor's voice rose slightly, drawing attention from nearby students. The Eastern District charity case has become the human's plaything. Before Michael could respond, Siri appeared beside him, her expression calm despite the anger flashing in her eyes. "Is there a problem, Vexnor?" she asked coolly. "Just discussing interspecies relations," Vexnor smirked. "I was curious about the resonance I've noticed. Quite unusual for an Elysian to bond with a non-Elysian. Some might call it unnatural. Some might call your obsession with other people's relationships pathetic," Michael countered. Vexnor's face darkened. "You think you're untouchable because of your father's position? Things are changing, human. The Council is beginning to question the wisdom of allowing your kind such influence here." He leaned closer. "And as for your Eastern District whore," the word never fully left his mouth. Michael's fist connected with Vexnor's jaw, sending the Elysians staggering backward into the Earth display. The holographic Grand Canyon flickered and died as Vexnor crashed through the equipment. The courtyard fell silent. Michael stood over Vexnor, breathing heavily, as the ambassador's son touched his bleeding lip in shock. "You struck me," he said incredulously. "A diplomatic incident. My father will—" "Your father will what?" Jonathan Mercer's authoritative voice cut through the tension as he strode into the courtyard, Safia at his side. "Please enlighten us all about what Ambassador Trelovic will do about his son publicly slandering a diplomatic family and using hate speech against Eastern District citizens." Vexnor scrambled to his feet, attempting to regain his dignity. "Director Mercer, your son physically assaulted me without provocation." "Without provocation?" Safia stepped forward, her silver-white hair gleaming in the sunlight. "There are at least 30 witnesses who heard your provocations, including 3 Academy faculty members." She gestured to several professors who had gathered at the commotion. Vexnor's confidence wavered. "This isn't over," he hissed before stalking away, his supporters trailing behind him. As the crowd dispersed, Jonathan turned to his son. "My office. Now." "I know what you're going to say," Michael began, once they were alone in Jonathan's office at the Cultural Exchange Center. "I embarrassed you, created a diplomatic incident, and played right into Vexnor's hands." Jonathan leaned against his desk, arms crossed. "Actually, I was going to say your form was terrible." If you're going to punch a diplomat's son, at least do it properly. Michael blinked in surprise. Don't look so shocked, Jonathan continued. I'm not condoning violence, but I understand defending someone you care about. His expression softened. Your mother would have done the same. The mention of his mother, rare in their household, caught Michael off guard. You're not angry? Oh, there will be consequences. Officially, you'll receive a formal reprimand. Unofficially, Jonathan's lips quirked upward. I'm proud of you for standing up for Siri. Michael sank into a chair. Vexnor's been building to this for months. It's not just about Siri and me. He's been gathering information on all the Eastern District students, looking for any excuse to discredit the program. We know, Jonathan said grimly. CFY's sources in the Eastern District have reported similar harassment, but there's more happening than simple prejudice. He activated his desk display, bringing up a series of documents. These were sent anonymously to my office yesterday. Financial records showing significant transfers from Ambassador Trelvik's accounts to known extremist groups opposed to human Elysian cooperation. Michael leaned forward, scanning the documents. He's funding protests against his own government's policies? Worse, he's manufacturing evidence of academic misconduct among Eastern District students. If these forgeries were accepted as genuine, it could collapse the entire initiative. A knock at the door interrupted them. Sophia entered, followed by Siri, whose eyes immediately sought Michael's. I've spoken with the Academy Disciplinary Committee, Sophia announced. They've agreed to limit Michael's punishment to community service, given the circumstances. And Vexnor, Michael asked. Formal censure for inappropriate language, Sophia replied, her tone indicating her dissatisfaction with the light punishment. Jonathan shared a meaningful look with Sophia before addressing both teenagers. There's something else we need to discuss. Something personal. Siri moved to stand beside Michael, their hands finding each other instinctively. The resonance glow pulsed visibly between them, where their skin touched. We've noticed the resonance, Sophia said gently. It's rare but not unprecedented for an Elysian to bond with a human. How would you know? Siri asked, then gasped as her mother extended her wrist, revealing a subtle glow that intensified when Jonathan placed his hand over hers. Because we experienced it ourselves, Jonathan explained, 3 years ago. You're bonded? Michael stammered, looking between his father and Sophia. We've kept it private for political reasons, Sophia explained, but in light of recent events and your own resonance, we've decided to formalize our relationship through both human and Elysian traditions. You're getting married, Siri whispered, her free hand covering her mouth. Yes, Jonathan confirmed, and in doing so, we're making a public statement about human Elysian relations that Trelvik and his faction won't be able to ignore. Or forgive, Michael added, understanding the implications. You'll be directly challenging everything they stand for. Which is why we need to move quickly, Sophia said. The announcement goes public tomorrow. After that, Trelvik will do everything possible to discredit us. Including targeting you two, Jonathan finished, his gaze moving between Michael and Siri. Your relationship is about to become very public, very political, and potentially very dangerous. Siri's hand tightened around Michael's. We can handle it. Together, Michael agreed, the certainty in his voice surprising even himself. The news of Jonathan and Sophia's engagement exploded across Elysium like a supernova. Within hours, the planet's information networks were flooded with commentary, ranging from celebratory to outraged. The Cultural Exchange Center's communication systems crashed under the weight of incoming messages, while security around the diplomatic quarter doubled overnight. Michael and Siri found themselves at the center of a storm they hadn't created but couldn't escape. Academy students either openly supported them or pointedly avoided them. There was no middle ground anymore. This wasn't how I imagined spending our last semester, Siri murmured as they huddled in an empty study room, reviewing security footage Michael had secretly copied from the Academy's systems. Finding evidence of a conspiracy to sabotage our parents' wedding? Michael replied with a wry smile. Not exactly in the standard curriculum. For the past week, they had been investigating suspicious activities surrounding the upcoming Unity ceremony. Jonathan and Sophia had chosen the ancient grove, Elysium's most sacred site, for their wedding, a symbolic gesture meant to emphasize the deep cultural significance of their union. There, Siri pointed to a shadowy figure on the screen. That's Mektor, Vexnor's cousin. What's he doing at the Grove's maintenance entrance at midnight? Michael enhanced the image. Looks like he's passing something to that maintenance worker. He zoomed in further. Wait, that's not a maintenance worker. The uniform doesn't fit right. Siri leaned closer, her silver hair brushing against Michael's cheek. The contact sent a wave of warmth through the resonance bond, momentarily distracting them both. Since their bond had manifested, physical proximity had become both intoxicating and challenging, each touch amplifying emotions and sensations beyond normal intensity. "Sorry," she whispered, not sounding sorry at all as she tucked her hair behind her ear, deliberately letting her fingers brush his skin again. "You're not playing fair," Michael murmured, his voice dropping to a register that made the resonance pulse visibly beneath Siri's skin. "Who said anything about playing fair?" Her iridescent eyes met his, filled with mischief and something deeper. The tension between them had been building for days, a potent mixture of their evolving bond, the external pressures they faced, and the natural progression of their relationship. Each stolen moment together seemed charged with possibilities. With effort, Michael refocused on the screen. "We need to identify this fake maintenance worker. If they're planning something at the Grove, I can enhance the image using Eastern District recognition algorithms," Siri offered, reluctantly shifting back to business. "They're designed to work with partial facial features, useful when you're trying to identify someone who doesn't want to be found." As she worked, Michael marveled at how far she'd come from the girl in the worn orange jumpsuit he'd met in the park. Her technical skills had flourished at the academy, combining Elysian intuition with human analytical approaches in ways neither culture had anticipated. "Got him," she announced triumphantly. "Prendal Chorus, former security officer, discharged for excessive force against Eastern District residents." Her expression darkened. He was implicated in several disappearances, but never charged. "A thug with a grudge," Michael summarized. "Perfect for whatever Trelvik is planning." Siri nodded grimly. "The ceremony is in 3 days. We need more evidence before we take this to our parents." That evening, they met at Michael's private apartment, a graduation gift from Jonathan that had become their sanctuary from prying eyes. The space was a blend of human comfort and Elysian aesthetics, much like their relationship. "I accessed Prendal's financial records," Siri announced as she entered, her expression troubled. "Large deposits from an anonymous source, timed exactly after his meetings with Mektor." Michael took the data crystal she offered, their fingers lingering together. "This might be enough to—" His words cut off as the apartment's security system chimed a warning. Someone was attempting to override the entry protocols. "Bedroom now!" Michael whispered urgently, guiding Siri toward the back of the apartment. "There's an emergency exit panel behind the headboard." "I'm not leaving you," she protested. "We're not separating," he assured her. "But we need options." They had barely reached the bedroom when the main door slid open. Michael positioned himself protectively in front of Siri as Vexner stepped into the apartment, flanked by 2 burly Elysians. "How domestic," Vexner sneered, his third eye scanning the room. "The human and his pet, playing house. Breaking and entering is a serious offense, even for an ambassador's son," Michael replied coolly, surreptitiously activating the emergency beacon on his wrist communicator. "As is espionage," Vexner countered, holding up a datapad. "Accessing Academy security systems, investigating private citizens, hacking financial records. Quite the list of crimes you've committed." "What do you want, Vexner?" Siri demanded, stepping beside Michael, despite his attempt to keep her behind him. "What I've always wanted, Elysium free from human corruption." His gaze raked over her with contempt, "and purged of those who betray their own kind by bonding with aliens." "You're planning something at the Grove," Michael stated flatly. "Something to disrupt the ceremony." Vexner's smile was cold. "Disrupt? No. Prevent? Perhaps." He gestured to his companions. "Search the apartment. Find their evidence." As the thugs began ransacking the living area, Michael and Siri exchanged glances, silently communicating through their strengthening bond. They needed time for help to arrive. "Why do you hate us so much?" Michael asked, deliberately drawing Vexner's attention. "Is it because your own father rejected the resonance with your mother? Everyone knows he married for political advantage, not love." Vexner's composure cracked, his facial ridges darkening with rage. "You know nothing of my family. "I know your mother died of heartbreak," Siri said softly. "The resonance rejected but not released. It happens when an Elysian bonds with someone who refuses to reciprocate." "Shut up!" Vexnor snarled, advancing toward them. In that moment of distraction, Michael lunged forward, tackling Vexnor to the ground. "Run!" he shouted to Siri. Instead of fleeing, Siri grabbed a decorative sculpture from a nearby shelf and swung it at one of the approaching thugs, catching him squarely in the head. The Elysian dropped like a stone. The second thug hesitated, clearly not expecting resistance from the Eastern District girl. That hesitation cost him as Siri delivered a precise strike to his throat, a human self-defense technique Jonathan had insisted she learn. Michael and Vexnor grappled on the floor, rolling toward the balcony doors. Despite his diplomatic training, Vexnor fought with the desperate fury of someone with everything to lose. "Your father's ceremony will never happen," Vexnor hissed as he pinned Michael momentarily. "The explosives are already in place." "Explosives?" Michael's momentary shock gave Vexnor an opening to land a punishing blow to his ribs. Before Vexnor could press his advantage, Siri leapt onto his back, her arms locking around his throat. The resonance flared brilliantly where her skin contacted Michael's, sending a surge of strength through their bond. With renewed energy, Michael broke free and delivered a decisive strike that left Vexnor unconscious. Breathing heavily, Michael pulled Siri into his arms, the resonance pulsing between them like a living thing. "Are you hurt?" "No," she whispered, trembling not from fear, but from the intensity of their connection. "But Michael, explosives. We have to warn them." The wail of security sirens approached outside. Help was coming, but they both knew it might not be soon enough. In that moment of crisis, with adrenaline coursing through their veins and the resonance binding them together, Michael made a decision. He cupped Siri's face in his hands, his eyes meeting hers with absolute certainty. "Whatever happens next, I want you to know. I love you. I have since we were children, though I didn't understand it then." "I know," she replied, her hands covering his. "The resonance doesn't create feelings, Michael. It only reveals what's already there." Her eyes glowed with emotion. "And I've loved you since the day you got lost in my district and looked at me not with fear, but with trust." Their lips met in a kiss that transcended the chaos around them, the resonance creating a cocoon of light that enveloped them both. In that moment, they weren't human and Elysian, but simply two souls perfectly aligned. When they finally broke apart, the decision was made without words. They would face whatever came next together, as they always had. Dawn broke over Elysium's ancient grove, bathing the sacred trees in golden light. In just 6 hours, Jonathan and Sophia would exchange vows beneath the Elder Arch, surrounded by friends from both worlds. But first, Michael and Siri had to ensure there would be a ceremony at all. "Security Chief Wren refuses to delay the ceremony without concrete evidence," Michael reported grimly, ending his call with the Elysian official. "Ambassador Trelvik has convinced him that Vexnor's confession was coerced." Siri paced the small security office where they'd been held for questioning after the fight in Michael's apartment. Bureaucratic stonewalling, classic Elysian elite tactic. "Then we handle this ourselves," Michael decided, his jaw set with determination. "We know the explosives are already in place. We just need to find them." Siri's eyes widened. "Without authorization? The grove is locked down for pre-ceremony security sweeps." Michael's smile held a hint of his father's diplomatic cunning. "Good thing I have the director's access codes then." The ancient grove stood at Elysium's heart, a cathedral of living trees whose branches intertwined to form natural arches hundreds of meters high. Unlike the carefully manicured parks of the diplomatic quarter, the grove retained its primeval character, with pathways that wound organically through undergrowth illuminated by bioluminescent flora. Michael and Siri slipped past the perimeter guards using Jonathan's codes, their movements synchronized through their strengthening bond. Since their confrontation with Vexnor and their subsequent night together, a night where their physical and emotional connection had transcended both human and Elysian understanding, the resonance had evolved into something deeper than either culture had documented. "The maintenance tunnels run beneath the central clearing," Siri whispered, consulting the grove's schematics on her wrist device. "If I were planting explosives to maximize damage during a ceremony..." "That's where I'd put them," Michael finished her thought. the structural supports for the Elder Arch. They located a maintenance hatch partially concealed by flowering vines. The electronic lock yielded to Jonathan's override code, revealing a narrow tunnel bathed in dim blue light. "Stay close," Michael murmured unnecessarily as they descended. The resonance pulsed between them, creating a subtle glow that illuminated their way more effectively than the emergency lighting. The maintenance tunnels formed a labyrinth beneath the grove, supporting both the ancient ecosystem above and the modern amenities required for Elysium's most prestigious ceremonies. As they navigated the winding passages, Michael reflected on how perfectly this symbolized their relationship. Natural beauty supported by deliberate structure, tradition enhanced by innovation. "There!" Siri suddenly hissed, pulling Michael into a shadowed alcove as voices echoed from around the corner. "Final checks complete," a gruff voice announced. "Remote detonation is active. When the human and his Elysian whore stand beneath the arch, we'll bury them and their abomination of a union." "Ambassador Trelovic wants no evidence linking back to us," a second voice cautioned. "Once the ceremony is canceled, he'll announce his peace initiative to salvage relations with Earth." "Clever," Michael whispered as the footsteps receded. "Create a crisis, then position himself as the solution." "We need to find those explosives," Siri urged. "They mentioned remote detonation. We can't just evacuate and let security handle it." Following the direction the voices had come from, they soon discovered what they sought. Nestled against the main support pillars beneath the Elder Arch were sleek, military-grade explosive devices, far more sophisticated than they had anticipated. "These aren't amateur bombs," Michael observed grimly. "These are military-grade. One would be enough to collapse the entire arch." Siri examined the nearest device. Dual fail-safes, remote trigger, and, her voice faltered, a tampering countermeasure. If we try to disarm it incorrectly, it detonates immediately. Michael's diplomatic training kicked in. "We need leverage, something to force Trelovic to deactivate them himself." Siri's eyes lit up. "The conversation we just overheard, if we had a recording..." Michael tapped his wrist communicator. "Standard diplomatic protocol. All conversations within range are automatically recorded." He smiled grimly. "Dad's paranoia finally pays off." They carefully backed away from the explosives, formulating their plan as they returned to the surface. The morning sun now illuminated the grove fully, highlighting preparations for the ceremony that would begin in just 3 hours. "We can't go through official channel," Siri reasoned. "Trelovic has too much influence." "Then we go public," Michael decided. "Every information network on Elysium, simultaneously." 2 hours later, Ambassador Trelovic strode confidently through the gathering crowd at the ancient grove, nodding graciously to dignitaries from across the galaxy. The human Elysian union was distasteful to him, but he would endure it briefly, until the tragic accident that would end it permanently and position him as Elysium's savior during the resulting diplomatic crisis. His self-satisfied reverie shattered when every public display in the grove simultaneously activated, showing his son Vexnor's face alongside damning financial records and a crystal-clear audio recording of his operatives discussing the planned bombing. Pandemonium erupted. Security forces converged on the stunned ambassador while guests scattered in panic. Through the chaos, Trelovic spotted Michael and Siri standing calmly beside the Elder Arch, their expressions resolute as they directed security forces to the hidden explosives. The ceremony proceeded exactly as planned, though with considerably more security than originally intended. Jonathan and Sophia stood beneath the Elder Arch, their resonance visible to all as they exchanged vows that blended human and Elysian traditions. Michael stood proudly beside his father, while Siri attended her mother. Their own resonance glowed brilliantly, drawing knowing smiles from the assembled guests. 5 years ago, Jonathan began his address to the gathering. "I walked through a park and discovered my son studying with a girl from the Eastern District. What I witnessed that day wasn't just two children helping each other. It was a glimpse of what Elysium and Earth could become together." He gestured toward Michael and Siri. "Today we celebrate not just our union, but the future they represent. A future where differences strengthen us rather than divide us." Sophia stepped forward, her silver-white hair adorned with traditional Elysian bonding crystals. "From the Eastern District to the diplomatic quarter, from poverty to prosperity, our journey reminds us that worth isn't determined by where we begin, but by how we choose to proceed." As the ceremony concluded with the traditional joining of hands beneath the cascading light of Elysium's afternoon sun, Michael leaned close to Siri. "Not bad for a fragile human boy who got lost in the wrong district," he whispered. Siri's laugh was like music. "Not bad for a homeless alien girl teaching a human boy his homework," she countered, her eyes sparkling with joy and mischief. Their lips met in a kiss that needed no explanation or justification. A perfect union of human passion and Elysian grace. The resonance between them pulsed visibly, drawing appreciative murmurs from the crowd. Later, as celebration filled the grove with music and laughter, Jonathan found a moment alone with his son. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "when I saw you and Siri in the park that first day, I never imagined we'd end up here." Michael smiled. "What did you imagine?" Jonathan considered the question, watching as Cephia and Siri danced together, their movements elegant and joyful. "I just knew I had to do something. That helping her was the right thing to do." "And look what happened next," Michael replied, his gaze following Siri with undisguised adoration. Jonathan clasped his son's shoulder. "The best decisions often look simple in retrospect. See a child in need, help them. Find someone who completes you, love them." He smiled. "The rest is just details." As the twin sons of Elysium began their descent, casting long shadows through the ancient grove, Michael took Siri's hand and led her to the center of the celebration. There, beneath the elder arch where their parents had just been united, he knelt and presented a small box containing 2 intertwined rings, one of earth gold, one of Elysian silver. "5 years ago, you showed a lost human boy the way home," he said, his voice carrying across the suddenly hushed gathering. "I've been finding my way back to you ever since." Siri's eyes shimmered with emotion as she accepted his proposal, the resonance between them flaring so brightly it illuminated the gathering dusk. From homeless alien girl teaching a human boy to partners in every sense, their journey had come full circle, and as they sealed their commitment with a kiss that bridged 2 worlds, those gathered understood they were witnessing not just a personal union, but the dawn of a new era for humans and Elysians alike.